For those of you that are out there waiting for the Zoom meeting to start, I just want to let you know that the board is still in closed session and we will be returning as soon as closed session ends. So thank you for being patient.
Hi, Leslie. Oh, good.
Hey, Richard.
I was going to make sure I was at the right meeting.
That's a good looking fish there, Derek Daly.
Thank you, sir.
Leslie, we're still waiting for Tiffany and for Aaron, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Tiffany, Aaron. Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Hi, Aaron. She's back. Okay. No luck with Tiffany yet. Okay. If it's okay with the rest of the board, do we want to go ahead and start and resume back into open session? Yeah, okay. It is 5:32, Mr. Rohrbach, and report out a closed session. Action on student disciplinary case number 66. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation?
I move to take the superintendent's recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Ham. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, John. Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion on that item? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote then. And motion carries 4-0. Thank you. We'll move on then to the consent agenda. But before we do that, I do want to welcome everybody that's joining us virtually. We have over 180 community members joining us for their special meeting. So we do appreciate you logging in and joining us for our special meeting to address, I'm sure, the hot topic, the reopening of our school for the 2020-21 school year. So welcome, everyone. We'll continue on with the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion. It's John.
Thank you, John. Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the consent agenda?
Consent agenda is basically 100% the roof at El Capitan, and it's not an inexpensive project by any means. But I guess I just wanted to point out that I think the district has done a very good job. They've been very thoughtful on this, and this is the money being used for this is coming from a lawsuit settlement. It is not new funds that the district is having to find to make the repair. I think that's important for everyone to know.
That's correct.
Thank you, Ms. Ham. Okay. Any further discussion on that? Then we'll call for the vote, please. And motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Then we'll move on to the action agenda. The first thing is, or the only thing is the reopening of school for the 2021 school year. Dr. Weimer, welcome.
Good evening. I will be sharing my screen here real quickly, and I will be starting the presentation, and then others will be moving in to take different parts of that. So on July 17th, we did get guidance from the state of California after the governor's announcement from the California Department of Public Health. The requirement to open on campus in an AME model, we must be off of the county watch list for the previous 14 days before we would be able to open back in in-person learning. So what does that actually mean? Here is the county watch list. So it measures a variety of things. It measures the number of tests that are actually being done in the county. It measures what the number of cases are per 100,000 people over the last 14 days. So this is an average, not a daily average, but an average over the last 14 days. The positivity rate, the percent change in hospital patients, the ICU beds, and the last one is ventilators. These are the Merced County numbers. Anything that is on blue means that's why we're on the watch list. And the reason I have two numbers there for you is the first number is when I made this presentation originally last Tuesday. And then the bottom number is actually the numbers where we're at today to kind of show you the indication that unfortunately we're going in the wrong direction. So this number right here under the case rate needs to be 100,000 over 14 days. Last week it was 228, which is more than double what it's allowed to be. And it's gone up since then to over 279. Actually on Friday, it was right about 300. So it's bouncing up and down a little bit up in that range there. Positivity rate, which means how many of the tests people who are getting tested actually test positive, and it's 18%. So of those being tested, 18% are testing positive. And then you have the change in hospitalizations. So you see a 3-day change in hospitalizations up 29%, and you see an increase in the need for ICU beds from 6% to 16.7%. So the numbers to get off the watch list are currently still going in the wrong direction. Here you can see the daily positivity rate. I'm having to move around where the pictures are on my screen here real quick so I can see my presentation. So up here is 120. This was actually for last week. It has gone up. We had a day that was 180. We had a day that was over 200. And so the number keeps continuing to go up over here. To be able to get off the watch list, we need to be down in the 20 range down here. And if we look at June 28th forward, we've only had 2 days that's under 50, and we need to be getting under 20. So again, those numbers are going in the wrong direction. And the idea that we're going to be coming down anytime soon is not very optimistic from Merced County Health. So how long would it be until we would be able to open? From the first day that we get down to around that 20 per day average, we would still need to keep that for 14 days so that the average became 14 days. There's a 3-day lag to make sure that reporting is correct. And then assuming that the positivity rate, hospitalization, and ICU rate came down at the same time, we would then have to be off the watch list for 14 days. So optimistically, from when we get from where you saw those highs of anywhere between 120 to 200 a day, when we get down to possibly around the 20, it'll still be 31 days from that point before we would be able to reopen to in-person learning under the current criteria. Merced County Health has said that the expectation to meet this requirement before the end of September is unlikely, and that the end of September to early October is still very, very optimistic. And that still puts you right before flu season, and how many people are going to be showing symptoms, and you don't know if they're COVID, you don't know if they're the regular flu. You're getting into that November to December range, and we're going to be having those issues as well. Real quick update of the things that we have to include, and then I'll be handing it off to Dr. Aguilar. SB 98 is the budget trailer bill, and the budget trailer bill includes the language that we have to abide by this year to ensure that we get held harmless on our ADA. So we're being held harmless, which means we get last year's ADA, as long as we put the things that we need to in place as we move forward. And those are a minimum daily instructional minutes of 240. It's actually 180 for continuation school and 180 for a student who's taking a college class. But for all freshmen and sophomores and juniors and seniors who are not taking the college class, it would be 240. Daily live interaction with certificated employees and peers, document daily participation, weekly engagement record for each student, procedures for tiered re-engagement, and then learning continuity and attendance plan has to be approved by the board by September 30th. So those are the things that we have to do under the state budget bill. And I will pass it over to, unless you have questions on those, any questions on that part so far?
Dr. Weimer, can you go back to the previous slide
Thank you.
on the SB 98? So obviously, I'm sure that this has been, deployed out to all staff members, that they're aware of the requirements under SB 98 and what we'll have to fulfill in order to get funded, correct?
Those plans are being worked out right now, so I don't know that all staff would know those numbers yet.
And so what's the holdup with us deploying this to all staff so that we're all on the same page and they understand as we're going through these conversations that, look, we want to get funded. This is what we have to meet.
We are currently working with our bargaining units, DTA, to work out the details of what the beginning of the school year would start looking like.
And
But-
just
But
to be clear, Mr. Lopez, the 240 minutes is a minimum. And so that's very similar to a minimum day. Just so folks that are listening can kind of get it into their head. Our average day is around 360. So that's just the minimum requirement. That's not certainly something we're going to be negotiating for.
All of this is a minimum, correct? I mean, as a parent, I would certainly hope that my children will be getting more than 240 minutes a day of instruction. And I would hope that there's a whole lot of other things that I believe the district is working on ensuring are available for our students to maximize learning opportunities versus being stuck just in these few items that are mandatory.
Absolutely.
And Dr. Weimer, my point behind this is that I know in conversations, that although there's a team that represents the teachers or CSEA union or then our staff, does everybody have access to what SB 98 is, so that when they go back to the union membership, we know we have to meet the minimum 240, or we're working on a number, but if we know what that number already is at the minimum, then let's not have that conversation. We already know what the requirements are going to be.
Yes, we have not put anything out to the membership. I do not know if they have.
Because it's not this is public knowledge. So I'm just thinking in terms of, ensuring that everybody has this piece in front of them so that they know when we're talking this language, teachers will be expected to document, the actual time or whatever that language was as far as the time of engagement for value of the work for students, whether it's instruction plus the independent work, okay, there's 35 minutes of work or 45 minutes I can document to help fulfill that requirement. So,
Sure, I can attach a lot of this to my next memo and make sure everybody gets it.
okay, thank you, Alan.
Yeah. I agree with
Alan,
Richard
can
that
you,
Alan,
can you repeat the, sorry, Alan, can you repeat the, the minimum is 240, which is about 4 hours. What is the normal in a normal school year? Normal.
Around 360.
Okay, just wanted you to repeat because you broke up when you said it earlier, at least on my side.
Yeah, so 240 is like what most folks can expect on a minimum day. When we say, hey, kids have a minimum day today at Livingston High School, that's the minute breakdown.
Got it. Just wanted you to repeat it because again, you were breaking up on my side. I don't know if that was for everyone.
Sure.
Tiffany, you had a question?
No, I just agree with you, Richard. There's nothing precluding us from, getting this information out that these are requirements that all districts are tied to. And we do have a requirement to document participation, daily life interaction, intervention for our students, high quality instruction, all those things. And those are the expectations for everybody.
Thank you.
Hey,
Any
Richard,
more questions? Yes.
was she
Yes.
breaking up for everybody or just on my side?
It's for all of us, Julio. It's for all of us, I believe.
Okay, because I didn't
Yeah.
understand anything she said. More
Yeah,
most.
Yeah, she was talking about SB 98 budget bill and that there's nothing stopping us as a district from passing this information out to all of our employees so that they understand what SB 98 is and the requirements inclusive of that bill.
When we get MiFIs for all of our teachers or students and staff as necessary, we need to get Tiffany one.
I know, and I show a strong connection too, so I don't know what it is.
And you're the techie in the group.
Oh, Ms. Ham. Oh, Ms. Ham.
The other thing that I guess I just want to point out on that last slide, and because for the community, I don't know. I mean, I want to apologize, although it's not our fault. There's so much right now that we are just hamstrung by the government, by the state, by the county. And so the last thing on here, the learning continuity and attendance plan approved by September 30th. School's already started, right? So that seems a little bit ridiculous, but the state hasn't given us all of the guidelines and the required documents and everything else at this point. So I know the district has been working for months in advance of this. And I believe Dr. Aguilar is going to talk maybe more about that next. Yeah.
Hey, Dr. Aguilar, as we transition over to your PowerPoint, what's the conversation? I mean, last year you had numerous meetings prior to us going into closure with the original LCAP, the local control plan. So what's the conversation as far as the annual report or any mandates around the LCAP for last year?
Yeah, so as Ms. Ham mentioned, we're having to open up school, but yet have a plan that's not due until September 30th. So I do have several meetings that will be scheduled with parents, students, and DTA, CSEA, and community groups. They will be, parents will be notified and will reach out, because we do want input into the new LCAP. So if you look at the term learning continuity and attendance plan, the acronym for that is still LCAP, but yet it's a new template. The state will release the new official template on August 1st. I did attach the draft form of the learning continuity attendance plan to the board docs here, so everyone in our audience should have access to it. So all of the items that are in that template is what we need to address as a school. And what Ms. Ham is referring to, many of those items we should have had this document a long time ago so that we could have addressed these issues with our community before. But we're going to be asked to open up school first and then go through and consult and meet and then have this a plan shared out in August and then approved in September. So it is a little discombobulated, if you would, with regard to the continuity and the flow of the way communication should work with all of our stakeholders. I did want to, share the items that are in the new template. First and foremost, as I mentioned, we shall consult with bargaining units, site personnel, parents, and students. At this point, I also want to make sure that everyone in our audience knows that principals at every site are going to be available to meet with parents and students and staff at least on a weekly basis here as we start school. And Director Sam Inigas of Communications and school sites will be communicating with parents via Parent Square, notifications on the website as to when those meetings will be held. If you are interested in being a part of the parent group that I will be holding, I ask that you contact my office, Ms. Kimberly Zamudio. That's K Zamudio, KZAMUDIO @muhsd.org. You can also find her email address on our website. You can contact her to be a part of the Zoom meeting for our parents. But I do want to emphasize, if you have site-specific concerns or questions or just dialogue that you want to have about what's happening on your campus, please look forward to getting information from your school principal about when they're going to make themselves available to meet with parents, because that's ultimately really important. When I meet with parents, a lot of times parents will have site-specific questions, so principals are and will be equipped to at least entertain those questions and concerns. Also, when we have these meetings with all of our constituent groups, the process that I will use is for these meetings is to listen and take notes, note all the concerns and questions, and Ms. Zamudio, our assistant in Ed Services, will type up those questions, and then I will be reporting the answers or responses to those questions in written form to all constituencies that will be attending. And I expect that site principals will do something very similar as well. So again, we want to make sure that people are being heard, that their concerns are being noted, and there is a response to every concern. And this is the process that we use through our LCAP process anyway. Also part of the LCAP, in-person instructional offerings. So if you're looking at that, the draft form, you're going to be probably on page 3 of the document, and you're going to say to yourself, well, what does this mean in personal instructional offerings? We're not doing that. We're doing distance learning. You are correct. However, when we write this plan, if and when there is an opportunity for us to reopen again, we do have to state how we are going to do that. So all of the language in that section will be written in conditional form, in the conditional tense, so that when and if we do, we can start to state that this is how we will open. And again, these are areas where we definitely want to hear from our community about. We have to address learning loss. So we were asked to jump into distance learning in March. And I want to emphasize that what we asked our teachers to do in March was an emergency. It's almost as, we said, all right, the house is on fire, grab all your valuables, we got to get out of here. And that was kind of the urgency that we had in trying to put together a plan and trying to equip our teachers to go into this really new environment and really do an about-face 360 in the other direction of what we had been doing. I mean, we've spent the last 4 years developing programs for hands-on learning, in person, And now we asked our teachers to do an about face and go online. So we know that this is a huge ask of all of our teachers. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we have the ample time in schedules for our students to get all of the learning that they can, because we are going to have to address the learning loss. We have to present this to the board and say, how are we going to make up for those missed opportunities in the spring? How are you going to make what you did in the spring better in the fall? So as Dr. Weimer mentioned, they are negotiating a schedule, and it is really prudent for us to be able to address this and make sure that the instructional minutes are where they need to be, and that we have the accountability that we need, both for students and for staff, to ensure that our students get what they need. The next bullet point there, monitor and support mental, social, and emotional health. We know that even before this COVID pandemic, that this was a big concern of our community. And we knew that they wanted to ensure that our students were being seen. Well, this is, again, something that we need to bring forth with all of our constituency groups to ensure that we are going to meet the needs of our students in this area. Re-engagement of those who miss more than 3 days in a week. How are we going to track those students down? What are we going to do for those students? That is, again, a big concern, and something that we're going to really have to work with our constituency groups to ensure that students don't fall through the cracks, and we don't miss students in classes for multiple days. Providing meals for our students, those are again going to continue as we have done in the past, but more importantly, we need to plan for the distance learning. And you'll see here the continuity of instruction and transitions between in-person and distance learning. We do have program administrator Cheryl Garman and our Ed Services team that are working very diligently to address all of these concerns. We have provided access to devices and connectivity for all of our students. All of our students will be receiving a MiFi device, in essence, a hotspot. All of our teachers will be given a webcam so that they can be in their classrooms and deliver asynchronous classes where every teacher and every student will see each other face to face every day. We are providing Zoom accounts for all of our teachers so that they can have breakout rooms. They did not have access to these equipment and devices in the spring. So again, we want to share with our community about what we're doing, and then also receive more feedback about what we perceive to be our plan. We need to measure the synchronous instruction and time value of student work. Again, I go back to the amount of time that our students will be in class and the schedule that they will be under, which is, again, still being negotiated. Again, this is something that we are going to have to address in this plan, and our board is going to have to approve. Robust professional development. Many of our teachers, again, were thrust into this distance learning environment. I am very confident in saying that if you were to ask many of our teachers, if it were up to them, and if the conditions were where they needed to be to return to school, our teachers would want to return to school under a safe condition, yes. But as it is, they're not. They're going to have to do what they do for a living online, and they're going to need support, and they're going to need help. I can speak from experience myself teaching this summer, 50 students online using Canvas. It's definitely very eye-opening, and I think this gives me a little bit of street credibility with some of our teachers about what it's like to teach online. There are things that I didn't even think about until I got, was in a classroom and began to instruct students. So the professional development for our students is going to be quintessential and incredibly important for our staff to access. Changes in staff roles and responsibilities. What are we going to do if our teachers all of a sudden become ill? Our HR department has worked very diligently and very hard to hire full-time substitutes in the event that something like that happens. So again, that's something that we have to address in our plan. Lastly, the additional supports that our pupils with special needs are going to get. What are we going to ensure that we're going to give our English learners, our special education, our at promise students, students that are in foster care, our McKinney-Vento homeless students? That's a lot for us to address, and we're going to need the time in the day to be able to address all of these concerns. And again, this is where the rubber really hits the road in the work and working with our community and staff. So I look forward to hearing from our staff, from all of our constituency groups. You have my contact information, and I look forward to putting together a robust and a very good learning continuity and attendance plan that we can feel really proud of and present to our community and say, hey, under these circumstances, we've found the silver lining, and we're going to do the best we possibly can in supporting our staff and our students, so our community can be very proud of the work that we're doing.
Dr. Aguilar, before we move on, can you ask the board members for some feedback on what they believe would be important? This is a template. We can add to it and make it ours.
Yeah, I've got a few comments. I can start. I'd like to say, I mean, I like what you put together here, Dr. Aguilar, and a lot of this is, you know, SB 98. It's what we need to have as a minimum. I'd like to see, you know, first and foremost, quality in instruction. It's not easy teaching and learning online, and if you've done either one, it's you know how difficult it can be. I'd like to make sure that the teachers have the tools and the training that they need to do that. I understand there are webcams that have been purchased that should help with that. So happy to hear that. The tools are going to come and go. I think the focus really is strong pedagogy, training on a strong pedagogy and instructional delivery, but also you know, some type of a schedule that is going to ensure that there is face-to-face time, which is a requirement, but there's some meaningful daily face-to-face time with students, and also the opportunities for the intervention, some check-ins, intervention, not just for our kids that are functioning at grade level or above, but special needs students, support for our special ed, homeless, special populations, daily support for those populations. And then the other thing that I feel very strongly about is the updating of grade books. It's really difficult from the parent perspective, probably from the counseling perspective, to know how a child is doing when grades are not put into the grade book. Particularly when they're not put into the grade book until the week of finals, when grades are due. Particularly when that includes tests that could weigh anywhere from 40 to 80% of an overall grade, and then the test is thrown in there. It's detrimental. And from you know, an educator's perspective and a parent perspective, it just doesn't leave any time for any intervention or help. So that is something that I would like to see too, as regular updating the grade books.
Yes, thank you, and duly noted.
A couple of things I'd like to add. You know, I think obviously none of us hoped that we were going to be in this position, and I know our district has been working tirelessly throughout the summer, and all of our staff and our families are looking forward to a plan, right? And when everything changes all the time, that's very, very difficult. Parents and staff, I want to very much encourage you to use your voice right now for what's right for your family and for our community. And for those of you who've been in touch with the district, with your school site, with board members, thank you. I think it's imperative. And I know there's a lot of questions about things that are being thought about, but you have some expertise and some needs that should be addressed as well. I don't know any teachers that don't want to be back on campus, that don't want to be in their classroom, and that don't want to be working with students. And so I really want to encourage teachers to be talking with their union representation, because as we are negotiating to reopen our schools, it's not okay to me as a parent, as a community member, that my children would only get 4 hours of instruction every day. That's the bare minimum that the state is requiring. And I just personally think that's absurd, that is what we would settle for. So parents, please talk to the union. Teachers, please talk to the union. I appreciate the comments on professional development, and I hope that every teacher will take advantage of the opportunities to learn. I think we all know that March to June was an absolute failure for almost everybody. And for those of you who figured it out, kudos to you, because you'll have a leap start going into the fall here. But, you know, I don't think it was ideal for anybody. I would like to really highly encourage a universal schedule. If you could find a silver lining in education having to go online, it would be that students could take any course that's offered by the district. So an example might be in Livingston, they offer Punjabi. A student from El Capitan or Golden Valley or any other school could take that class if we have a universal schedule. We give every campus a tremendous amount of autonomy to operate as appropriate for their student population and their staff, which results in everybody's on a different schedule. So one of the things that the district would really, really like to see is that we are all on what's considered a universal schedule, so we can offer the most opportunities to our students. I very much look forward to more details on what the mental, social, and emotional plan is. We, as you said, Dr. Aguilar, there's a lot of issues around that. And I see it in my household. I see it in my neighbors. All of our kids need extra support there. So I hope that, I look forward to that plan. And I'm certain that we'll have some sort of a daily option for our students to touch in with positive adult influences. I have heard from, unless teachers have some sort of a health issue and their preference is truly to teach remotely, almost every teacher I know has said they want to be in their classroom. When they're in their classroom, they don't have the distractions of their household, but more importantly, they have the tools, the devices, the materials. They have their teaching environment to teach from, and students can learn from. So I would really look forward to our teachers as they can teaching from the classroom. Nothing was mentioned about a freshman plan. And I think, you know, all of our students who've been on campus previously, they already have their Chromebooks. They know a little bit. They've met a lot of teachers, even if they haven't had them before. They know a lot of students. That's going to be different for freshmen. So I look forward to seeing more on that plan perhaps as well. And I know there's a lot of freshman families that would like more information. I'm not going to repeat the things that Tiffany said, but I absolutely support those as well. I was devastated when the district announced that we would not be going back to school in the fall. And I believe that that's being amended. And really the plan is we will go back when we're off the watch list. That's 100% what I support. I want our families and our kids to have choice. So I don't want to arbitrarily take that away because we think we might not get off the watch list. Obviously we have to plan for either scenario, but you know, these are very trying times and our district has done a great job leading through it. And I know you will continue to do so and find a solution so that if Merced County gets off the watch list, we are able to invite our students back into the classroom in a safe manner. And I know our staff will want to be on campuses in a safe manner. So I appreciate the plan you put in place for that as well.
Yeah, Richard, this is John. Yeah, I'm not going to go over anything that's already been reviewed. I concur with all those things. I think what is important at this point in time, aside from what's been mentioned, is a timeline and details about what happens between now and when school starts. The counselors, when do they get access to the counselors? What are the schedules? Which classes can they take at high school and the junior college? And I know there's a lot of confusion about that. Some campuses seem to be in front of others. I think we need to provide clear instruction from the district office, and I think it needs to be district-wide for all sites. We need to have uniformity right now. I know in the past we've allowed a lot of campus by campus autonomy under guidance, which was fine then, but we're in a different place right now. And I think everybody needs to understand what the expectations are. The students, the teachers, the parents. I totally concur with Aaron that on-site is going to be the best way for the students and the teachers to get the best results. One of the things that's not even mentioned yet is just an interaction with your peers on a daily basis. And, I work in an office, I work in an administration. And although I get things done at home when we were in shelter in place, I think most are more productive in the workplace when you're working around your peers and the people that you're serving on a daily basis also. And I just want to also mimic that, we did vote for the on-campus instruction. I think we're all kind of boxed in right now by what's happening at the state level and the funding strings that are attached to that. But I hope our message is that we voted for in-person instruction on campus for all, and that as soon as we're able to go back and do that, that's what we're going to do. And that's all I would add at this point in time to what's already been said.
Thank you all. Dr. Aguilar, as far as the pupil learning loss, what do you have in mind as far as kind of like your baseline to be that data? I mean, obviously we have no state data due to no testing for both the LPAC nor the CASP assessments. I mean, and we're talking back in March. So what are we going to use to kind of be the baseline to then say, okay, between these 3 months of the closure to where we are now, this is what we're going to use, and this is how we're going to measure pupil learning loss?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, before we even address the learning loss, I think what's really important is that we address the students' emotional loss of being in school, the socialization. I always like to use, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You got to make sure that your students have a safe place to learn. They're being fed, their emotional needs are being met. They're able to socialize with their peers in order to get to the top of the pyramid, which is, what they're going to learn in school. So I think we need to start there. I know Director Johnson will be talking later about the Nurtured Heart approach, but that is really going to be the foundation of the work that we do when we return. I think the second piece to it is really ensuring that our teachers have time to collaborate vertically to be able to understand where some of the learning stopped. We were doing a lot of really good work with essential standards. It was one of our board goals, still is one of our board goals, to identify the essential standards. And I think the timing is perfect now as we are crunched for time and in a different learning environment. I think it's even more important that our teachers are collaborating vertically and horizontally so that they know where that learning stops and what were the learning essentials or the standard of the essential standards that were missed. Where did that stop? So I think that is the second piece before we even start to talk about assessment.
Okay, and then as far as obviously this new LCAP plan, what are the funding dollars tied to it that we have to account for in this new plan?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of that question. I'm trying to figure out how to turn off the dinging here on my
Gotcha. How much funding is tied to this plan?
I'm going to defer that to Dr. Weimer with regard to the budget and the financing of that.
Okay.
This is a weird situation and a weird year and the way they're going to do it. Each of the items does have places on the template that, at least on the draft one that I've seen, where you're going to have to identify the different expenses and the different things that are going into that. There is not necessarily a specific allocation of funds for this, but under the current budget law, SB 98, we are going to be held harmless to last year's average daily attendance, ADA. To be able to get last year's ADA, we have to be able to do the things in SB 98. This plan is one of them. So not having this, not following this would basically cost you your ADA,
Gotcha.
which is like 90% of our funding.
Okay. And oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Richard, go ahead.
And then as far as the funding from last year's LCAP, which I know has been, been pushed aside, we're talking millions upon millions of dollars. And the last, say 3 months of school, we were all shut down mode. So pretty much did nothing, although those dollars were allocated for an outcome. Where are we with those funds and what's going to happen with that?
Yeah, I don't have that number off the top of my head. I can make sure that we have that when we do the first interim. But a large amount of LCAP dollars is personnel, and personnel expenses did not stop. So we might not have had bus routes, but we still paid bus drivers. We were giving money to meal services. Those still had cafeteria workers. So a large amount of the regular LCAP money was still spent, even though there were not students on campus. But I can't tell you how much was exactly left over at the end of that, but it will roll over as LCAP money again into this year.
Yeah, because I know that, like you talked about nutrition, I know that nutrition took a hit because obviously kids weren't on campus to get the meals. And I know that in our LCAP, we said that we were going to, allocate a certain amount of our monies to provide 100%, breakfast and lunch to all of our students. Is that still the plan to add to offset the loss that they had in their program?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
As far as the learning loss, I know you spoke a little bit about the assessment piece, but are there any adaptive programs that you're using, or maybe even just in special ed or in certain classes that would help with some of that learning loss? So you're still teaching the content, but then the student during maybe some asynchronous time is able to address some of those deficiencies that they might have?
Yeah, for special education and for English language learners, we do have ILIT, and they do have assessments that are there. And those are very important for us to have for students' IEPs to measure growth. And then also for the growth measurements for our English language learners that are part of accountability that we have to our state plans.
Are they actually adaptive, or are they just assessment tools?
They're adaptive.
Okay.
And with assessment tools.
Is there a reduction in instructional minutes for SVC?
No, under under the schedule that that was initially proposed, no, and there was actually some really good amount of time that was built in for our special education students. If we were to go back to, let's say, our traditional schedule, what they were getting during the year, yes, that would be built in.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Aguilar.
Do you have an update on the MiFi devices that we approved at the last board meeting as to, are they ready and in place? Will we be able to utilize them at the start? The plan is cool.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So we actually have the physical device in possession. What Tony Thomas and his team is working on now is engineering the device. So we're working with AT&T, I believe, to make sure that the MiFi is going to work and it's networked, it's the compatibility is there with our network. So the timeline for that is they're starting tomorrow. So the timeline for that is really pushing it up against the start of school.
And do you feel like there's enough time for all teachers to be trained at this point to be ready to go back in the distance learning mode?
So I will butt in there and just comment that there are two issues Cabinet is wrestling with. The biggest issue is the MiFi allocation. So as Dr. Aguilar stated, they are here, but they have to get networked. We are in a very tight time crunch with the start of school on the 12th. And so that's the one issue, the MiFis. The second issue is teacher training. And, you know, while one could argue that a few more days might not make a difference, it will make a difference with teacher schedules, I believe, and certainly with admin in the district setting up those trainings. So as a part of this recommendation, I would like the board to consider pushing the start of the school year back to the 19th. So a 1 week delay. This is something that we have talked about with our union that we would at least need to discuss with them, which we can do on Friday. We would need to change the calendar with an action item that is in regard just to the calendar on the 12th, our next meeting, or we could possibly call a special board meeting. But I will take any questions on that at this time, but I think it's appropriate that, you know, we want everyone to be prepared, both students and staff. This is a huge, huge crisis we're dealing with. And I think everybody wants to get the year off on the very best foot possible.
Well, as I had said, I do support delaying the start in order for all students to have the MiFi devices ready to go. So I do support that. Hopefully the union is willing to work with us on changing those dates or adjusting the dates to get trained, for everyone to be prepared. I want to make sure that all students have equal access to online learning when we start.
Thank you.
What would that do to the school year? Where would you make up those days? Or do you have a thought on that, or are there different scenarios?
Yeah, there's many different scenarios. We would work with the union on that. So, you know, where they're most comfortable. Certainly give our recommendations.
So what you're asking us then is if we're in favor of doing it or actually making the calendar change without any other input, not knowing where that is going to go?
Can someone translate that? That might be clear.
Tiffany, you want to try? Oh, Tiffany, you want to try it again?
I think she's frozen now. I don't know. Oh, there she is.
Can you hear me?
I think she needs one of these MiFi devices. I do think that this is this needs to be explained. So the MiFi devices, for those that were not at the previous meeting, but they are hotspots for students to have in their homes, so they're prepared, and so that they have a good connection, so we don't have the issues kind of like Tiffany's having. I'm not picking on you, Tiffany. I'm just pointing out that that's exactly the reason why we need this and why we voted to buy those devices.
I totally hear you. I show a strong connection too. I don't know what it is. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, very good.
Okay. All right. So, so my question was, what are you asking us to do in terms of the schedule then? Actually make a calendar change to push the start date back to the 19th without any input and not knowing where the week's going to go? Or are you asking us to do something else?
I'm asking when Dr. Weimer reads the recommendation at the end where it says possible calendar changes, that we include that a delay to the 19th, and which will then allow us to get the input over the next week. And we can, I mean, if the board has no problem with that, we can wait until the 12th. If somebody would like to discuss it further, we can have a special meeting for it.
Well, I think we need to let people know when they're starting for sure. I agree with the connectivity piece of it, that, and I know that it's a lengthy process, just, from my own experience, getting those things checked out, picked up, traded, whatever the problem happens to be, and having that ready to go prior to the first day so kids can start, the way they need to start. My only, I guess, concern is that because it's a networking piece, there's a chance possibly that it might not be ready to go on the 19th. Working with third parties, I know Tony will do everything he needs to do to get it done, but you're working with third parties, sometimes those things are out of your hands. That's one concern. I do like the idea of time for training. I think training is critical. The tools and the resources, so that you're comfortable with them, but again, those often change. Teachers have ones that they like, that they prefer to use, but the pedagogy for sure and the instructional delivery, I think are a key focus so that we can ensure quality instruction for the first semester. Those are just my concerns, and that delaying the year, is that going to give us the training opportunities that we need?
Mr. Peterson, as far as the, this conversation has been around, the union and DTA, do we have to bargain the effect of the change of calendar with the CSCA also? I mean, I'm thinking in terms of employees that work 180 days. I mean, now we're asking them to hold off on coming to work, and then they could say no. I'm not sure. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I'll let Mr. Calderon speak to that, or Mrs.
I think we have a couple of options there. I think moving the school year around still allows employees to come in on time, or we can work individually with each person's calendar to change it. But that's something that we do have to consult with CSEA.
Okay, thank you, Ralph, for clarifying that.
One option would be the week off in February. Also, is Tony on the line? I'm sorry, not on the line, on the meeting, Zoom meeting?
Tony is not, but he's on the bat phone, so he knows that to expect a text or a phone call if needed.
Okay, just wanted to see if he can answer some of the concerns that Tiffany or I have, or anyone else has, regarding if this is sufficient time to be ready, and will it make a difference? In my opinion, I think it does, but I think if we ask him, maybe he can clear it up a little bit better.
Mr. Valadez, this request of mine came from Mr. Thomas this afternoon. We had about a 30-minute conversation about where they were with the MiFIs, and that's really the biggest issue here. And he basically told me that it's going to be very iffy on the 12th. And I asked him, what about the 19th? Can you get it done for sure by the 19th? And he was very positive about that. And I even offered to give him another week if that's what's needed. Again, it's most important we get off on the right foot. And he was comfortable with the 19th.
Okay, well, that kind of clears it up for me. But the other thing I had mentioned was maybe this is something where the week off in February would be the one to make up the lost time.
But yeah, we'll work with our unions on where to go from there.
Yeah, I trust Tony's judgment for sure. So if he's confident, then that sounds good.
One mention earlier was that it was AT&T, but I do believe there were Verizon equipment. Sure, we're going to use the Verizon network as well.
You are correct. I misspoke. It is AT&T. I mean, I'm sorry.
Ver-
It's Verizon. I use AT&T. Sorry, Verizon. Yes, you're correct. Verizon.
All right, let's proceed with the presentation. Dr. Weimer, Dr. Aguilar.
I believe
And
Governor
that is,
South Road.
yes, thank you. In order to reopen the school successfully, we wanted to make sure that as our employees return to our physical sites, that we have a plan together that makes it as safe as possible in this pandemic of COVID-19. And before I turn it over to Derek Daly, I do want to tell you that we do have a team in place at the district level that has worked very hard on this plan and has been at work since March, making sure that we have protocols in place and systems in place that keeps employees as safe as possible. And just like to recognize those people: Brooke Thompson, Kim Gurdon, Rosa Wood, Christy Johnson, Mandy Ballinger, and our risk manager, who will be taking us through the rest of the presentation, Derek Daly. So Derek. Is Derek on, or am I going to be taking you through the rest?
Sorry, I'm on. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board, district cabinet, and members of the community joining us tonight. I'm on to share the district's COVID-19 exposure protection plan with you. This plan, the goal of this plan is to facilitate and to support a safe and clean environment for all members of the Merced Union High School district community. We've worked hard to develop this plan in accordance with the California Department of Health, our local Merced County Department of Health, and guidelines set forth by the Centers of Disease Control. And as Ralph mentioned, we have a great team working on this, and members of our team are on a weekly phone call with the County Department of Health, where with other school districts in Merced County, where we receive updates on guidance, and we're also able to ask questions as to how this guidance should be implemented. One of the elements of our plan, next slide, please. One of the elements of our plan is a COVID-19 awareness training. All staff returning to our facilities will have to take this training. And this training will educate our staff how to protect themselves and others from exposure to this virus, so we all know how to do our part to keep the Merced Union High School District community safe. Staff whose essential functions include cleaning and sanitizing will receive job-specific training on how to accomplish that. Another element of our plan is following the guidance of the State Department of Public Health requiring the use of face coverings. So next slide, please. Each staff member will receive at least 3 cloth face coverings. And any exemptions to the California Department of Health face covering guidance will be handled in accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Next slide, please. Here are just a few of the examples of some of the control measures and spread prevention protocols we're going to implement. Again, these come directly from guidance from the CDC and state and local public health. And as I mentioned earlier, as we receive new guidance, we will update guidance accordingly released. I think one of the biggest questions everyone has is how we're going to clean and sanitize everything. And again, we're going to follow the CDC and public health guidelines for cleaning and sanitizing. We're going to pay extra attention to frequently touched surfaces and common areas where, you know, there's greater risk for exposure. And another big question I think individuals have is, what are we going to do when we have a positive case that's been in one of our facilities? And again, we're going to follow the CDC guidance. And at a minimum, that workspace would be closed for 24 hours so we can assess the situation. And then the guidance recommends that if possible, that area be closed for 7 full days before any routine cleaning and sanitizing continues. If for some reason we had to open that workspace earlier than 7 days, we would look to hire a contractor who is trained and has the level of training and personal protection to do that safely. Another element of our plan will be a daily screening. So there's to the screening slide, please. There is an example of one of our site-specific forms there. It's a Google form, and all staff will complete that screening daily. The intent really is that if staff are not feeling well, they've been exposed, or they have any of these symptoms, they don't come to work. But if this happens at work, this gives us the ability to not only check in with them and follow up as appropriate, but also one of the questions helps us identify areas that they've been on campus so that those can be cleaned and sanitized, and also aids our contact tracing and case investigations, which brings me to my last slide. I think this is one of the strengths of our plan. As Ralph mentioned, we do have a strong team working on this, and all of those individuals have been trained to do this contact tracing. In the event of a workplace exposure, we will contact the employees that are identified as a close contact of the positive case, but the identity of that positive case will be kept confidential, and would only be disclosed among human resources and risk as appropriate. With that concludes my presentation, unless you guys have any questions.
Yeah, there's a screening process that'll be done via Google Form. So staff are doing that prior to entering the workplace, correct?
Or immediately upon reporting to work.
Okay. And if they do that at home, let's say, and they, well, obviously, if they have a symptom, they would stay home, correct?
That is the intent, but the site administrators are checking those forms and are following up and notifying human resources and risk as appropriate.
And if they're not sure of their symptom, whatever it might be, they're just not sure if it's a serious symptom, COVID related, it might be something else, then what is the protocol there?
We would most likely direct them to go home and follow up with their primary care physician.
Okay, and then return to work when they were well.
Based on their physician's guidance.
Okay. And then what about, the cleaning of bathrooms in classrooms? If teachers are in their classrooms, it's assumed that they might be the only one in their classroom, but let's say they're not. How do you guarantee that those rooms are?
That's a really good question. We're going to ask that individual staff members clean their own individual workspace. So if a staff member has their own desk, they would wipe that area down, their own phone, their own keyboard, mouse, their own personal work items. But the rest of that area would be cleaned and sanitized by the custodial staff. So that includes restrooms and then all the touch surfaces, doorknobs, and surfaces in those areas.
And that would be daily.
Correct.
Thank you.
So are there any other questions?
Thank you, Derek. Appreciate it.
What about the office areas where multiple people use maybe printers and so on? How often will those be cleaned, and who will be doing that?
At least daily. We are going to provide an ample amount of wipes and hand sanitizer. So in addition to the daily cleaning, if people feel like they want to wipe that equipment down before they use it, those products will be available.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's next, Mr. Peterson? Oh, there we go.
That would be the end. So at that point, you would have the recommendation, which the superintendent recommends that the board approve fall instruction through distance learning, understanding that the learning continuity and attendance plan that needs to be approved by September 30th, 2020 will include the options plan for any in-person instruction or activities for the fall and spring, if allowed under the current public health reopening criteria. This would also be whoever would be making the recommendation, if you were interested in the moving of the calendar, that would be included in this recommendation as well.
I'm sorry, I do have a couple additional questions. One is about textbooks. Will we still continue to offer textbooks to students, or will all classes go to digitized books, or what is the plan on that?
Dr. Aguilar.
Yeah, so we still, most of the purchases that we've made for the core are all around digital. So they're all digital textbooks. However, many of our elective classes do have textbooks. So we've had several of our sites contact me and ask for digital textbooks because, you know, they only have a classroom set. So as the need arises, school sites are contacting my office, and we're working with the sites and the teachers to get them a digital textbook for the year.
So what about students that really prefer a textbook? Is that an option? Will the libraries have those? And well, okay, I'll ask, then I have another question.
Yes. The you know, students still have the option to pick up a book. They just need to contact their school and work that out with the principal to get that textbook picked up.
Okay, so I think that's probably very important that we communicate to families. Should your child prefer a textbook, please let the school site know. And on that note, I guess, you know, typically we have Roundup on every campus, and historically every campus has done that pretty uniquely. And I think some sites have already communicated their Roundup plan and others have not. And of course that creates a little bit of angst in the community of like, well, this site's doing this and my kid's not going to get anything, you know. I mean, so do we know what Roundup dates are, or what the plan is on that across sites?
Yeah, so I know we're going to meet with administrators tomorrow for the first time during our DLT district leadership team meeting. We did talk about ensuring that we do have a freshman orientation for all incoming freshmen. Sites have the autonomy to do the how they're going to do that, but then also ensuring that they're getting information out to parents. Now, let me kind of remind everyone, things have been so fluid that we've asked sites to hold off on sending information because things are changing so quickly. We didn't want to send out.
And just to clarify that topic of sites being uniform, this week Cabinet created a kind of a summary of all the expectations that need to happen. That's going to be presented tomorrow morning. It will be the same at all sites. Principals are well aware that we are in a different and new environment, and it's going to be a little more autocratic leadership this year. As many of you have, so we're on the same page there. Message has been heard.
Thank you. On that note, unless someone else has questions, I move to approve the superintendent's reopening plan for the 2021 school year.
Can you repeat that, please?
I'm
Aaron?
sorry. Aaron,
I move to approve the superintendent's reopening plan for the 2021 school year.
were you planning to add the addendum on that also, Aaron, as far as the calendar?
Including the modified date of starting on August 19th.
Somebody needs to hit mute. I second that. But I want to make sure that you did include the opening a week later.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's included, Julio.
Okay, just a lot of feedback going on right now.
Okay, so we have a recommendation and it's been seconded. Any further discussion on that topic? Okay, seeing none.
Hold on one little.
Go ahead.
The freshman orientation and roundups, will that be communicate it to us as soon as you have it for all the sites?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Rohrbach, you have a question?
No, we need to read the public comments before you
Oh,
take.
I'm sorry. Yes, you are correct. Thank you. I apologize for that. Hi, Leslie, you're on. Thank you.
Okay, there are just a few public comments tonight. The first one is from Fiona Davis. Ms. Davis says that virtual teaching does not work at all. There are no legitimate reasons to not open. This forceful school closure again is going to put all the children behind 1 year. The next comment is by Chanel Pinero. Chanel says that I believe that the school should give the parents who choose to distance learn a food card with money on it because of having to go and get the lunches from school sites. The school lunches are not the greatest and none of my kids eat them, and it would just be easier to go grocery shopping and buy healthy options. The next two comments are from Meredith Hermosilio. I apologize, Meredith, for not pronouncing his name correctly. Her first comment says, I have heard high schools will offer AP classes for distance learning. I just want confirmation that this will happen. I also have heard that there is distance learning program that teachers will be using. Is that program appropriate for AP classes and learners? And then the next comment, what happens if athletics aren't able to start in December? Can there be an option for kids to be screened and play without spectators and live stream it? The next comment is from Kimberly Bautista. Kimberly says, as an MUHSD alumni, I can share how much I struggled to get any help from any one of my counselors. Although I wanted more help than just switching classes or meeting my counselor in a group setting during class presentations, I never got the mental, social, and emotional support I needed. Counselors, in my experience, were rude, dismissive, and also attempted to plug in their views on me. So now with a global pandemic and students struggling at home with the lack of positivity that comes from being on campus and interacting with peers, how will MUHSD monitor and support the mental, social, and emotional health needs for all students? How will guidance counselors be assessing students? Will students be allowed to come on campus to meet with counselors? Who will hold counselors accountable for doing not just academic duties, but also the mental, social, and emotional obligations to students? Now is the time for students' mental, social, and emotional needs to be in the forefront. It is not just about academics. Students need more and they should get it. It is disgraceful what I had to go through, and I hope things in the counseling department change for the better so that students can have access in caring, positive, and compassionate guidance counselors. The next comment is from Valerie Bychorik. I am wondering what will happen to students with IEPs. Our daughter will be a freshman. She isn't really ready to be a freshman since she missed 3.5 months of her 8th grade year. She has an IEP and was in a resource classroom all day except for band and PE. She needs the support. Distance learning is not a good option for her unless it's one-to-one. Who is advocating for our 504 IEP and special education students? And then the last comment is from Emily Maltba. Recently, we staff at the CDC, and that's, I believe, the Child Development Center. We're told we would continue to watch a select few children, infants and toddlers, even though it has been deemed unsafe to bring students on campus. It was stated that it would be a hardship on those select staff. While I understand, what about the rest of the district staff who recently lost childcare, including the CDC staff? So do their hardships not matter? Can these staff be temporarily be placed in different support positions until it is deemed safe for students to return? We are classified staff. Thank you for your time. That concludes the comments that were received by the deadline today, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Roback. I appreciate it. So we have an action item that's been motioned and seconded. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for the vote, please.
Wait, Richard,
Yes, sir.
sorry, I was on mute, but I do want to ask a question on here for this plan that we have in place. I do want to know what our plan is for the 504 and IEP students. Will there be additional staff for that? How is that going to work?
Mrs. Johnson, do you want to comment?
All IEP and 504 services will still continue with the same number of minutes that are in our IEP and will be done by case managers. And then for 504s, counselors manage those.
I also think there were a lot of very valid comments. Thank you to the community for speaking up. And we all wish that we had an option to not have distance learning, but we don't right now. So we will make the most of that. I'm confident with training and the right mindset, our teachers will do a great job. My understanding is AP classes will be offered as planned. And I think we're going to talk about athletics later. You just asked about IEPs, and I know there's another plan coming through on mental, social, emotional help as well. And then I don't know anything about the CDC, so I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on that or not.
The students will have access to live counseling. We will make sure that that is available, along with tech support for those that need in-person services. And then there'll also be a helpline during the school day at all school sites. So we fully understand that we need multiple platforms of access for all sorts of assistance.
Ellen, you talked about, as was one of my questions too, from students and for families for varied levels. You talked about support from counselors. Is that academic as well as mental health?
Tiffany, tell your kids to get off the Wi-Fi. We can't hear you again.
Yes, I heard the and mental health, both, Mrs. Pickle.
Are there plans to increase those mental health services? I know there's a need, but also the situation with our SROs not having to be on campus, are we possibly redirecting some of those funds in those areas? And then my last question, since hopefully maybe you can hear me and I can get all this out at once. Just to reiterate the supports for students with special need. I know they've got their IEPs and they receive those, but what additional supports would they receive, both academic and otherwise? You probably didn't hear that, huh?
Yeah, somebody picked that up.
Ms. Johnson?
Ms. Pickle, you could hold up a sign.
You can also call in. I think you're making good comments. Of course, you always do make good comments, Tiffany. So maybe you could call in and we can still see you, but you can talk to us on your phone.
We will answer your questions, Mrs. Pickle, if we didn't get it right now.
Okay, I will, yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so my question was increasing mental health services, particularly if we don't need SROs on campus, and redirecting some of those funds. And I'm gonna get this out real quick. Also, just reiterating the need and making sure we have those additional supports for those students that need it. Students will receive the services per their IEPs, but what additional supports like they need and making sure we're servicing them as well as we possibly can. Just a few comments and hope you got that.
Understood.
Okay. Any more discussion on this action item then? Okay, seeing none or hearing none, we'll call for the vote, please. And Mrs. Rohrbach, you will amend this action?
Sorry, yes, I have made notes and will make the change in the minutes.
Perfect. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it.
I just want to be, well, let's see what the outcome was before I comment.
Mr. Lopez, are you watching the scoreboard?
It is 5-0, Mr. Rohrbach. Thank you very much.
I
Okay.
just want to be clear with our board members that we will announce the date change for the school.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Much
Yep.
appreciated.
It will be public.
Will you also then let them know if there's a chance of going back? We will.
Of course.
Awesome.
And I let them all know last Friday, and I will let them know this Friday.
And obviously, thank you to all the cabinet team members that have been working diligently with this as these plans continue to change on an almost weekly basis. I do, and I'm sure the board appreciates all the work that you've put into it. I know it's not easy, but as much as communication as we can get out there, that's been a hot topic to our community. I think it's the best action that we can put in place so far, pending any further changes from the state. So thank you all for the work that you are doing. All right.
So I have a question, Richard. Alan said you're going to communicate the change of the start, but then how are you communicating where that week is going?
Well, let us communicate with our unions. And I would say by Monday, we need to allow them to have input on this.
Right.
And we are not super concerned where the other 5 days go. We'll have, or the 5 days on the back end, we'll have our recommendation, but we will work with them. When we get that done, then I will announce it.
Okay.
Alan, on talking about the union, why they're not on the agenda to give their not their feedback, but their report? Is that something that they just don't have a report, or is that what's going on with that?
Yeah, it's a special meeting tonight, so we don't have the standard reports from our unions.
Got it.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on then to the reports and discussion items only. The first thing on the list is the communications plan. Mr. Enigas, welcome, sir.
There it is. Hello. Whoa, I'm glowing for some reason. Anyway, hello everyone. Good evening. I will share my screen here. And you've all had a chance to look at this. And speaking of communicating the plan, a lot of these have TBDs, but we'll get to that. We'll start being able to fill those in now that we have a date for the beginning of school, because a lot of those things were kind of contingent upon that, planning around that. So basically, MUHSD is planning for the reopening of the 2020-2021 school year with continued guidance from the Merced County Department of Health, Public Health. There's a need to engage staff in planning and to share information and updates with all of our stakeholders. Communications Department objective is to keep students, parents, staff, and the community informed, maintain transparency, and to facilitate two-way communication. Throughout the entire ordeal, our team has continued to implement its strategy while adjusting for the new information that has been coming in pretty regularly. And again, I want to thank you, the board, and people watching, and everyone in the community for their continued patience. As we get closer to the school year, you'll start to see more and more of this notifications and information pick up. So goals, our goals to inform and update stakeholders includes providing timely information on the MUHSD's plans and safety protocols, frequent sharing of learning, technology, and mental health support that is available to students, staff, and families, and providing updates on the Merced County Department of Health and the CDC's guidelines as they pertain to school programs in the 2020-21 school year. So we started this plan almost a month ago when we sent out the online survey. And then that, of course, was when we gave them the choice, and that is no longer an option now. But then we had the fact sheet that went out. And as you see on the list, we have the list on the far left, or basically the stakeholder groups that the communication went out to, or is going out to. And you have what's going out in communication, and then we have the next column shows the different platforms that we're able to do. And then the last column is the date. Athletics, there's news on that. So, but you know, as of now, it's still suspended for the.
Is it or is Sam terrible? It's terribly muddled. Is it? It's terrible, Sam.
Yeah.
Way worse than Tiffany.
Really? Okay. That's
Now you're better. Now you're better.
Better?
Now you're-
Okay.
You're not
I'll
a farmer anymore.
I'll try to stand still. Athletics, there's news on that coming out later on, but you know, as of now, we are under the suspension from the county health order. Summer meals program.
I need to go back a little bit.
Okay. How far back?
I don't know.
The goals?
Sure.
Okay. Well, this has been up, so people have had a chance to read it, but I'll just go over the goals again. Providing timely information on the district's plans and safety protocols for returning to school this fall. Frequent sharing of learning, technology, and mental health supports that are available to students, staff, and families. Providing updates on the Merced County Department of Public Health and the CDC's guidelines as they pertain to school programs and the 2020-21 school year. Am I still sounding all right?
You are.
Alrighty. So this began almost a month ago with the parent survey that we sent out. And of course, that's when people had the option, the AB option, but that is no longer the case. I'm sorry, just real quick about this plan. On the far left are the different stakeholders that the communication is going out to. The next column is the actual communication that's going out. The column after that are the different platforms that the communication is going out. And then the last column is the dates. So this is kind of an overview of what we've done. Athletic summer workouts, those were suspended by the, per the county health order, but there is news that we'll be talking about a little later on. Summer meals program, they ended their summer session of that about a week ago, and we'll be starting up again when school begins. And the special board meeting, that is tonight. The student AB assignment, that is no longer applicable. Then we're going to start coming up to August. COVID training, that is something that is online right now that staff can do. District admin meetings, those are coming up here, as we mentioned, tomorrow, starting tomorrow and Friday. And then these are, in these highlighted areas, these are just kind of generic just events, or if there's new information to get out. So if there's a new memo that's going to be coming out, those can come out as new information becomes available. COVID-19 updates, school site communication, and the copy with the superintendent is a weekly thing that we're doing now. Headed into August, this is where the TBDs start showing up. That'll start filling in here now that we have a direction and a school start date. So Roundup it's still going to be a drive-through, but that'll be communicated via the school sites themselves. Freshman Chromebook distribution, the MiFi distribution, the reopening plan. Let's see here. The IEP calls to families, those are scheduled to begin on August 3rd. New faculty onboarding. Yeah, did you have a question? No? Okay. New faculty onboarding is scheduled to start on the 6th of August. Class schedules, I know a lot of people are wondering about that. That's still TBD. And then we have a whole slew of TBDs coming up, but I want to talk about these principal Zoom sessions and the admin Zoom sessions. Those are kind of, well, obviously we would have a freshman orientation, but it's kind of principals, when they have time, they've been asked to, well, actually directed to hold these Zoom sessions informational for, parents. So you'll start to seeing this next week, communications where, the schools will be letting parents and families know that, they're going to hold a Zoom session, that they're going to answer questions as they come in, but they'll also solicit for them. So just more site-specific questions as we get closer to the school year. And then something else was brought up as far as admin Zoom sessions, for staff also. So, if staff has any questions, they could also just have, kind of like what we do with the Facebook Lives, where they'll just open it up and any staff can answer, have their questions answered that are out there. And those seem to go really well. Once someone starts asking questions, then they really start coming in. You just got to have someone there to both monitor the questions coming in. It's kind of more than a one-person job, because I tried it and kind of got lost, but thankfully Dr. Aguilar and Cheryl have been helping out with the questions coming in, because they start, once they come in, they really start coming in. There's gonna be a helpline established for any tech or curricular needs, as well as on-site help desks for curricular tech, as well as counseling needs. Those, of course, TBD. Those will be coming up here probably, I'd say in the next week, we'll have some firm dates on those. Online community development with activity directors. This is a new one that came up in our last staff cabinet meeting, where activities directors will have that'll probably be their biggest role this upcoming fall, is just creating that online community, keeping that school spirit alive throughout the fall, and with their leadership classes. So they're going to get some training on how to develop that online sense of community with students. Of course, first day of school, we can now put in there for the 19th. And then meal distribution will take place starting on that first day. There is a survey that's out as far as, just getting a feedback on how and when parents and caregivers would like their meals, that service, at what time of day, maybe a couple of times a day, or they still like it once a day, morning, noon, or in the evening. So that, I believe tomorrow is Friday is the last day to fill that out, and then they'll share their data with us. And then the next board meeting, August 12th, and then again, the highlighted sections were just the, general information. Some important reminders: counselors return on July 31st. New teachers are back August 6th and 7th. All teachers back August 10th and 11th, and then all 180-day employees back on August 12th. In conclusion, health guidelines can and will change. As we mentioned, we're always sure to mention that whenever we give out any information regarding dates. However, we will remain vigilant, utilizing these communication platforms listed above to communicate information that is vital to the parents, students, staff, and the board, as well as our community members. Throughout our communications, we are stressing best prevention practices, as well as the districts keep students and staff safe. In addition, our network of school principals, administrators, board members, they're all encouraged to share our district communications on their campuses and via their social media accounts. We have a very strong social media presence. So please, thank you for doing that, sharing our information. And that is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions.
Before questions, I just want to commend Sam for doing an outstanding job with the SOS program. It has been picked up all over the state. San Diego County just put out advertisement and actually gave us credit, which was nice, in a countywide publication. And that was just a great idea.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Also like to add, I had an hour conversation with Dr. Asadi today and Mr. Brown. And I encourage everyone listening to go to yesterday's Merced County Board of Supervisors YouTube page. I think she spoke right at the beginning. Very passionate, very right on the mark as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to do some PSAs with her that Sam will be setting up for us, where I ask the question and she gives the answer. And we'll do little segments like that. So thank you, Sam.
Awesome.
Thank you. Any questions?
I think the district has done a lot of communicating to the community, and certainly the Facebook chats with Superintendent Peterson have been really helpful. But I know that there's just a lot more questions. And so I appreciate Dr. Aguilar saying earlier that he intends for, as part of the new LCAP plan, to do a lot of listening, because I think that's what our community is really asking for right now. Please listen to us. Please understand our needs. And I think we need the community to listen as well, that as much as there's things that we want to offer and provide, the state and the county are mandating a lot of it. That doesn't mean that we can't push back and advocate for what we think is right. But we also, you know, as has been mentioned, the average daily attendance numbers are what drive 90% of the funding for our district. So we have to be cognizant of that. Can you repeat, Dr. Aguilar, the email address for parents who want to get involved, who they need to contact?
Yeah, that's it's Kim Zamudio. I'll spell it really slowly. That's KZAMUDIO at MUHSD.org. And the telephone number is 209-325-2061. So again, that's Kim Zamudio, KZAMUDIO at MUHSD.org. And her number is 209-325-2061.
Any others? Any other questions?
Thank you, Sam, for that presentation. I know it's a lot. So once it's all really populated and we can see what is truly happening, that will make a big difference.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Damn it, Mr. Peterson. Just real quick, I know in watching the superintendent coffee things on Fridays, there's still some some dialogue as far as translations and whatever else. And I know that Mr. Peterson addressed that the frequently asked questions is available or will be available. What's the possibility of having a dialogue once you're done with the English portion of it, say in Spanish, whether it's with Dr. Aguilar or maybe having some dialogue to that nature to address that? I mean, because I think the message is pretty much consistent across the board,
Yeah, it's difficult because number one, the information changes all the time. And I think now we're kind of getting to a consistent point as we get closer to the start of school. The state has made some major decisions. We're reacting to those decisions, setting up plans based on those decisions. So, me in a Zoom meeting with 100 parents would be chaos. Those parents in their Zoom meeting with their principal, that would work, even with time slots. The translation piece obviously is difficult on Facebook Live, but we could do something, right after.
Actually, we do upload those to our YouTube page right after, and those they have a translator for that.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can watch it and then put the captions on and into all kinds of different languages.
So Sam, as far as that's concerned, so when the copy with the superintendent is being aired, is there information that can link, I guess, Spanish speakers to the YouTube? That way they can click on it and go to that?
Yeah, I have done that, and when I send it out on Parent Square as well, I posted the little link to how you can change the subtitle languages as well.
Fantastic. All right, thank you both. Appreciate that. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
Yep.
Hey, Sam, that will do it live while it's a live session.
You know what? I believe it does as well. We haven't. Tonight is actually our first time streaming to YouTube live. So if there's someone doing it right now, they could test it out. But I'm pretty sure you can have the live translator on. And you know, if someone wants to check that out, actually I can check it out as soon as we're done right now.
Okay.
Next up.
My bad, I was on mute. 11.02, difficult necessary conversations regarding social unrest. Welcome, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, how are we doing? Can we see my screen?
Doing great, thank you.
All right. Good evening, President Lopez, board members, Superintendent Peterson, Cabinet, Mrs. Rohrback, and stakeholders. Taking into account what is happening in the country right now, Pedro Noguera's words truly reflect our current reality. And if we're ever to move forward, we must be willing, courageous, and knowledgeable when having conversations about race-based issues. I'm extremely proud that our district is taking the time to not only measure its own actions, but to push forward with engaging in a process that seeks to not only remove barriers to learning for students of color, but to engage all students heart and soul through dialogue about what's happening in our country. Why is it important to have conversations about race in the school setting? A quote from an article by Jamila Pitts helps put the answer to this question in perspective. As educators, we sometimes unknowingly step into roles of advocate, caretaker, guide, and even mother or father to students. Students pay attention to everything we say and what we do. They pay particular attention to our silence. We may be uncomfortable talking about race, but we can no longer afford to be silent. We have chosen a profession which, like parenting, requires that our comforts come second to those of the children. As advocates, caretakers, guides, mothers, and fathers, certainly we must take the time to usher students through the labyrinth of race-related issues. When the opportunity to engage in dialogue around race goes unused, students may feel that adults are complicit or hiding or trying to downplay the realities in which they find themselves. The void between what happened to George Floyd and our students' realities must be filled with skilled, compassionate, empathetic adults that are adept at creating spaces to help students categorize and interpret their own feelings and ultimately their responses to such occurrences. Where do we begin? We must first seek to understand. We must be bold enough to root out our own personal biases. We all have them. We're human. The idea is to not let that have an effect on how we interact with each other. We continue with the history of the achievement gap, why it exists, what sustains it, why initiatives like the Every Student Succeeds Act has failed at providing equity. Next, we move to building a common language and defining terms whose definitions have blurred over time. Words like race, racism, bias, microaggressions, culturally relevant pedagogy, and colorblindness. It's important to note that we all have the best of intentions, and having these conversations will be hard, but our students, community, and the country needs for all of us to stay the course when topics of race come up. Students need allies and mentors in their journey to young adulthood. Without these, they may feel alienated and misunderstood. Failure to engage with students in using a systematic method for exploration and guidance to understanding race-based issues can leave students feeling isolated and alone. I would not say that these are the sole reasons for the achievement gap, for the existing achievement gap, but I would say that these are the barriers that are within our control. While engaged in this work, there must be an element of self-care. Facilitating difficult conversations can be emotionally draining. We need to make time to process and reflect on these conversations. We need to find colleagues to debrief with about the conversations about race. We need to take advantage of opportunities to learn more about the topics. Find resources like teachingtolerance.org to build a bank to add to our toolkit. Lastly, I've included a few strategies that can be used to frame these conversations. Because these types of discourses can indeed invoke very deep feelings, protocols and agreements must be in place prior to engaging in them. Taking a look at the first one, reiterate, contemplate, respire, and communicate, is designed to allow participants to logically marry intentions with passion. Reiterate provides time for participants to comprehend someone's thoughts, to mitigate misunderstandings. For example, a participant would say when they started for response, what I heard you say was. Contemplate, count to 10 and think about a response. Respire, take a few breaths, allows time for self-check-in. And then communicate. Speak with compassion and thoughtfulness. If challenging someone else's opinion, being careful to challenge the statements and not the person. The plan for this work includes meeting with principals this Friday to discuss the scope in its entirety and to begin their professional development. Create an Innovate Ed course that outlines the ideas in this presentation, which includes videos, articles, and discussion threads. Create a space where stakeholders can gain access to the curriculum that will be used in this course. Work with sites individually on the scope of the work. And lastly, embed Nurtured Heart approach in the baseline of this endeavor. For certainly a mindset such as Nurtured Heart that provides practitioners with the wherewithal to see students for who they are, for the value of their culture, and bringing out the greatness in each child. This is a mindset that is worthy of being ingrained in everything we do. I would like to thank the Merced Black Parallel School Board, the Council for African American Student Success, Ms. Leanne Hobbs from Merced College, Professor Ma Vang from UC Merced, Dr. Rose Owens West from West Ed, and our local NAACP for spading the ground for this necessary work. None of this work will be possible if we don't put relationships first. We need that in order to have conversations and be vulnerable. Does the board have any questions?
Mr. Johnson?
Sir.
Thank you very much for this. I think it's needed, for our community, obviously for ourselves as individuals, because that's an area that we all struggle with, obviously. And I think this sets forth that platform that we can begin to have those dialogues in a well-rounded manner. And that, I do appreciate the work. And obviously you've listed a group of people you've been working with to launch this. And obviously the board is behind this 100%, especially in the times that we are now, so that we can, start to bridge just all that's going on now. And it's unfortunate, but obviously in person would have been best to have these dialogues with our students. Yeah. But we'll take advantage of the virtual and the distance learning that we have now to take advantage of these opportunities to begin that dialogue with all of our students and all of our staff. Obviously us being the adults in the system, it's got to start with us, and thus overcoming whatever biases, like you mentioned, we may have ourselves, in order to have a structured educational conversation with our students and prepare them for, one of our goals is becoming critical thinkers. Well, here we are. Let's take advantage of that and make that a priority also across all platforms. So thank you for the work with this.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions for Mr. Johnson? Okay, we'll see none, then we'll move on. Torrin, keep up the great work, and we look forward to this ongoing dialogue. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good evening. Move on then to the county perspective on athletics. Welcome back, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Just to kind of give everyone an overview of what's been going on, I hope everyone knows by now, I'm a huge advocate of athletics. 45% of our students participate at various schools in various sports, along with everything else we do from an extracurricular point of view. Our county allowed us to move forward with a phase one sort of plan as we were reopening in mid-June. And I think we got 2 or 3 weeks in. And then the door was closed as our COVID numbers rose. And I will give the not so politically correct answer here on what I think happened. But our county office calls Sacramento to get a definition of what does youth sports mean. And so to somebody sitting at a desk in Sacramento, youth sports could mean, you know, everything under 18 and younger, high school, throw it all together. Youth sports to me means soccer tournaments and softball tournaments and baseball tournaments and large congregations. It doesn't mean working out with your coach when you're a high school student, you know, playing volleyball or football. I think what's going to happen on Friday is we're going to get guidance that reopens that phase one, as long as we're social distanced. And I'm going to tell you, some of you may have been on before we started. I was chit-chatting with Mrs. Ham, and you know, sometimes people reach out to their public agencies and it's a frustrating experience. And sometimes they reach out to their public agencies and they have a good experience. And, you know, I have been, most superintendents have been aggressively talking to the county, talking to our county representatives, talking to public health, and trying to define things in a logical way where we don't blanket everybody with a policy. And I just want to commend Mrs. Ham because it was her advocacy, certainly partially for our students that are involved in athletics and activities, to have the county look at this. And so I don't know exactly how all that went down, but it's certainly everybody's effort in saying, can we be logical about how we look at things? And if we've got 10 kids in a group and they're all 10 feet away from each other and they're working out, you know, what's wrong with that? So that conversation has been going on since about, I think, July 9th or so. And I believe the agenda item tonight is just for board members to comment on how they view this situation and to give me any direction.
Thank you, Superintendent Peterson. Yeah, I mean, I am very, very, very hopeful that this new announcement on Friday from the county is going to allow us to do what so many other counties throughout the state are doing. And they're not only having high school practices, but all of their youth clubs and clinics and all kinds of things going on that I just think are dire to the mental health of our kids.
Yeah.
So I really hope we get that announcement, and I hope Monday our kids are running and swimming and hitting tennis balls and doing strength conditioning all outside, all safely, all in, you know, pods as appropriate, but to give our kids an outlet, to give them escape from their homes, to give them positive adult influences, to give them exercise and fresh air. I have just heard repeatedly from so many families the 3 weeks that athletics were offered between June and July were the best of this period for their families, because their kids were getting stress relief and they came home and they were happy, and then it all got shut down. So I know that the district supports that, and I think all of the board members do. I think we all want health and wellness for our children.
So we're looking at starting athletics back up with equipment. Is that?
No,
Okay.
well, number one, we just have to wait for the guidance. We've been given an inkling that it's going to be positive. So what I believe that means, Mrs. Pickle, is that we would go back to phase 1, no equipment. And then build from.
Yeah, no, that would be wonderful. I think it's been tough, and I agree with everything you said, Aaron. So thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Peterson or comments? Okay. Well, then that concludes then all of the reports and discussion items. Anything else before we adjourn the meeting?
Yeah, I just want to comment on athletics. There was a question at the during the public session portion. From a CIF point of view, there's going to be 2 seasons of sport in the spring. And one runs from the end of December, I think, until like April. If somebody else knows for a fact, jump in here. And then the other one runs from like end of February, early March to into June. So I just want to be clear that all the sports, all of them, are put into one of those 2 seasons. And so all of our CIF competitive sports, if things improve, we'll have an opportunity in the spring.
If I can, I just would like to thank all the hard work that the athletic directors did to put together these phases and give our athletes a chance to participate in it. So they did a lot of work this summer to get that all done.
They did, and they did a lot of work for naught. You remember in June, we were talking about if things stay positive, we will maybe compete in Merced County only. They had to prepare for that. It's just like us at the cabinet preparing for the AB, and then the news changes, and now you got to shift gears, and frustrating for everyone. But I agree with Mr. Calderon. Our ADs, our site admin, and thank you to all of our cabinet for working through this incredibly frustrating situation. And thank you to the board for working with us and understanding. And I just appreciate everybody's hard work and efforts over the last 4 months.
No, thank you, Alan. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody. I mean, obviously these are uncharted waters, times, everything, and and we're navigating as best we can. So I do appreciate all the work on everybody's behalf, and obviously all the input from the board and doing what's best for our community and for our schools and our kids. So thank you all very much. Now, are we going to meet again soon, Alan, to talk about the changes to the MOU and what might be happening there, or do we want to wait until the August date?
I'm fine waiting until the 12th, as long as we're all clear on what's going to happen.
Okay.
If anyone wants to meet for 15 minutes tomorrow, we can do that.
Okay.
Or next week.
Sounds good. All righty. Everybody have a good evening. Thank you very much. Take care. Be safe. Bye.
Thank you.